Some of my favorite worship services are those when we gather as a full community, as we have this morning. A congregation always feels most complete to me when the children and youth are present with us. Some of you have probably already heard me say, and all of you will undoubtedly eventually hear me say, that one of the things I cherish most about religious community is that it is one of the few places left in our society that are truly multi-generational. It is a place where people of all ages come together to make and sustain a beloved community in which we all give and receive precious gifts to and from each other. Later this morning, we will do that symbolically with our water ritual. I still remember the adults who were part of my church community as a child after my parents found Unitarian Universalism when I was in grade school. Some of those adults were unknowing contributors to the fact that I stand before you today as a minister. They welcomed me into the family-like community of the Second Unitarian Church of Omaha, Nebraska, and into the larger community of Unitarian Universalism. It is my hope that here and in all of our congregations, we continue to offer that welcome to people of all ages. I especially enjoy those multi-generational services that mark a special time of year, whether that's Christmas or Easter, major celebrations that of course we share with other faith traditions, or whether it's for one of our special Unitarian Universalist celebrations like the water ceremony in the fall or the flower ceremony in the spring. The water ceremony, sometimes also called water communion, is often, as it is today, part of a service called ingathering or sometimes homecoming. And it is a gathering in, a coming home to this church community to begin a new congregational year. In the fall, we gather together to reconnect with this beloved community and with each other. This is our church home. And just like we have probably heard that it's important for families to sit down together over a meal and reconnect after their days apart at work and school, it's important for us to reconnect to each other, both through this annual ritual after we've been perhaps going in different directions over the summer to varying degrees, and also on Sunday mornings throughout the year. This connection is important for those new to our community, as well as those who have been part of it for years or perhaps even since birth. It is often poignant for the new members and friends among us, those of you for whom today is the first time that you will participate in this ritual with us. If today is one of your first times here, if this is your first water ceremony with us, I extend a special welcome to you and hope that you will find a home here with us. Many new Unitarian Universalists describe feeling like they came home when they first found one of our congregations. This speaks to the comfort that comes from finding a community of people with values in common, whether or not the details of our individual personal theologies are a perfect match. A community where we feel welcomed from our first moments in the building, where we are welcome even when we haven't lived up to our own expectations, where we are welcomed back even after long absences. That sense of coming home when arriving at church can be what keeps our youth coming back even when they have many competing activities. It's what brings some Unitarian Universalist young adults back to our congregations, maybe not the one they grew up in, even after time away for college or in the busyness of their first years in the workforce after graduation. We come home time and again to where our spirits feel welcome and loved. What does it mean that this is a faith home to us? It doesn't mean that we have to behave like a family. There are things that we as a congregation have in common with families, and also ways in which we are too big and have too different a reason for coming together for the family model to work. Sometimes a chosen family, like this community, is stronger or more welcoming than a biological family. because here we are together not by chance but by choice. That is particularly true in our covenantal faith, where it is our promise to journey together and treat each other in accordance with our principles that keeps us in community with each other week after week and year after year. Sometimes home is a refuge, a place where we can retreat from the stresses we encounter elsewhere in our lives. For some, their literal home is not that refuge, but a church home like this can be. Even for those of us whose homes are a place of comfort, religious community can offer something more, something deeper, something at least different. I know that for me, after a week in which my heart is so often broken by what I see happening in the world, being in worship is a balm to my weary spirit. I hope that you experience that here too. And yet, home is ideally also a place where we are both challenged and encouraged to be our best selves, perhaps even to be better, stronger, braver than we know that we can be. Home, wherever we find it, is where people believe in us and reflect to us what they see in us. May this be such a place, and may we be those people. Amen, and blessed be. And now we will begin our water ritual, the gathering of our waters, with the bowl already holding some of the water from last year's water communion. It's a way of signifying that we carry our past with us into the new church year, that we are accompanied by those who were here a year ago and are no longer with us, whether through death or moving away or following a different path. Those who are no longer here live on in this, our sacred water, and also in our hearts. Before we come up and add our individual water, let us listen to this prayer by Renee Zimelis-Ruchatsky, which connects the history of this ritual to the present and the future of our faith. She writes, "It was at a gathering of white women when this gathering of the waters first came to pass. White women in a second wave of gender self-awareness, awakening, connecting, making new meaning, shifting the old ethos. The solidarity of these white women was reflected in the waters each brought, waters that became a liquid harmony of each sweet voice and intention. Today, we gather as a community of humans in a new wave of gender and racial awareness, awakening, connecting, making new meaning, shifting the old ethos. Today, we seek more than solidarity and harmony. We seek inclusion. We seek mutuality. We seek reconciliation. We seek justice for all people. Today, may our gathering of the waters reflect the gathering of our collective courage in service of the grace and love that is promised by our liberal faith." In light of her prayer, I invite us to be especially attentive to how we perform this ritual today. As the prayer points out, we are seeking inclusion, and too many times I and others have experienced this water ritual as a sort of one-upsmanship of whose water came from the best place, who got to travel to the most exciting place this summer. And over the course of my life, I have come to recognize, as others have, the inherent classism in that. And so I want to name that whether your water comes from your kitchen tap, which is where my water comes from, or whether it comes from some faraway exotic place or a nearby lake or river, it is all equally good. We are all equally valued and loved. And so this year, I'm going to invite us to try something that it may or may not be different for you, because this is my first time with you for this ritual, but it's different for many congregations. I'm going to ask us to stretch a little, to set aside just for the moment where the water came from, and even what it meant to you when you collected it, although that's important, and you may share that briefly as part of your sharing and at more length during the social time after worship. I know that you love to hear each other's stories. I love hearing them too. But in worship this morning, in this ritual, I'm inviting us to go deeper, to, as she wrote, seek more than solidarity and harmony, and to be more inclusive. So I'd like us all to consider that this water in this ritual is actually representing each one of us returning to this beloved faith community to begin a new year's shared ministry together. The ministry of this congregation does not just belong to the minister, as you all know, it is ours to hold together. And so I invite each of us to consider what we hope to bring to this community in the year ahead. What gift are you making of yourself to this congregation this year? And I invite you to take a moment and think of a word or a phrase that sums up that gift for you this year. Perhaps it's love, or justice, or joy, or community. Perhaps the gift that you are able to offer right now is simply your presence, which is a beautiful and valuable gift.
So together, let us read the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of the community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Please be seated. Little change in the routine here. I'm reading a long enough benediction, I didn't want you to have to stand the whole time. As we prepare to leave our time of shared worship, I want to offer you these words from my friend and colleague, Reverend Cale Rice, titled All Rivers Run to the Sea. It starts with a drop, then a trickle, a burble, a rush of water bubbling toward its destination, and finally, the wide, endless sea. All rivers run to the sea. Today, you brought water, poured it into a common bowl. Though our experiences have differed, these waters mingle, signifying our common humanity. Today, you came and shared in this sacred community. May you depart this sacred space, hearts filled with hope for new beginnings, a fresh start. Go forth, but return to this community, where rivers of tears may be shed, where dry souls are watered, where your joy bubbles, where your life cup overflows, where deep in your spirit you have found in this place a home. All rivers run to the sea. May we find here a home that fills us up, and may we then go out and, as our opening words said, pour ourselves out into the world. May that be our practice and our prayer. Go in peace, go in love.